Let's now talk about the duration or portfolio of bonds. So this concept should be bring back memories of the expected return of a portfolio, the alpha of a portfolio, the beta of a portfolio, and so on. The duration on a portfolio of bonds is just a weighted average of the duration of the individual assets in the portfolio. So it's basically the same thing that we've been doing all over. We multiply by some weight, by that bond's duration, we sum it up, and then we end up with the duration of the portfolio. So let's say xi is the weight of bond I in the portfolio, di is the duration of that bond, of that asset I, dp is the duration of the portfolio, and let's say we have n bonds in our portfolio. Then the dp, the duration of the portfolio, is just going to be the sum of xi times di. Okay, it'll be this, the sum of this. And so what is that? If you remember, if you've forgotten, then I just expanded it as well. That's the same thing as doing x1 times d1, which is the weight in bond 1 times the duration of bond 1, plus the weight in bond 2 times the duration of bond 2, plus so on up to xn dn, which is the weight in bond n times the duration of that bond. And so basically by using this characteristic, we could create a portfolio with any duration we'd like. Okay, and we'll go ahead and see how we do that. Let's say we require a bond portfolio with a duration of 10. Okay, so there's 4 bonds that we have as options. The first one has a duration of 6. So when I say 6, I mean 60 years, right? When I say the second bond has a duration of 8 years, the third has a duration of 10, the fourth has a duration of 12. Let's say we needed again a duration of 10. What's the first obvious option? We could just pick D3, right? We could pick bond 3 with the duration D3 equals 10. That would directly give us our requirements. However, let's say we didn't have that bond. We had just other bonds, and we're trying to combine those into getting a duration of 10. We could just combine the other 3 bonds in certain characteristic ways in order to reach 10. Okay, so if we put a weight of our investment of 1/6 in the bond with the duration of 6, and then 1/4 of our assets in the bond with duration 8, and 7/12 of our assets in the bond with duration 12, we'd end up with 10. So this is just clever math, right? This is just to eliminate 6 and 6. That gives us 1. And then 4 and 8 will eliminate to get 2. And then 12 and 12 will eliminate to get 7. And we get 7 plus 2 plus 1, which is 10. You could put any weights, basically, is what it's saying. As long as you do it in the right way, you'd end up with 10. Okay, so you could combine those 3 assets. If you didn't have, let's say, this 10 portfolio with this bond with a duration of 10, you could still achieve the duration of the portfolio of 10. There's 2 strategies that investors are using in order to create portfolios with matched durations. So the first one is called a focused strategy, and the other is called a barbell strategy. Well, what's a focused strategy? So the focused strategy, as you would think, is creating a portfolio made up of bonds with a duration very close to that liability. Let's say once again, the duration of the liability is 10 years. Okay, then we could pick bonds with durations of 9 and 11 years, which are right around the 10-year point. Okay, that's very focused around that 10-year. It's focused on the duration of that liability. Okay. The barbell strategy, on the other hand, chooses bonds with very different durations, like 5 and 15 years. So you could make the 10-year liability by putting 50% in each of the bonds. So if you put 50% in 5, in the bond with duration 5, 50% in the bond with duration 15, you'll end up with 0.5 times 5, which is 2.5. 0.5 times 15 is 7.5. And then when you add that two together, you get 10. Okay, so what is the benefit of doing that? The advantage is that there's no necessity to construct individual bond portfolios to meet that liability. You could make liabilities of different durations with the same 2 bonds, right? You could create anything between 5 and 15 basically using this using these 2 bonds, like 10. Here you could make anything between 9 and 11, which is a lot more focused. Okay, so there's been research that has been examining which one is better in meeting the goals, okay, of having that asset and liability mix equally sensitive to changes in interest rates. Remember, our goal was to make sure that the assets and the liabilities change in similar ways so that they both cancel each other out and our investment is not changed in its value. Okay, and the researchers showed that actually the focused measure is a lot better at matching those two sensitivities. Again, when you think about it, the textbook gives a good reasoning for it. Um, it's because that all duration measures are approximations, okay, of that true shift. So when these assets and liabilities have similar durations, the errors in that measurement are very similar. Okay, and so if the errors in the measurements are very similar, they sort of will cancel each other out in a way, and so they'll be very close to the true value. However, when you pick bonds with very vast different durations, the error patterns could be very different. Okay, so it's a lot harder to match those movements with interest rates in order for them to cancel each other out.